5 years after shattering my husband's heart, I found myself face to face with him again. His final words left me speechless. 5 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. At the time, I didn't think about the consequences. Blinded by selfishness and a craving for something I couldn't even define. Luke, my husband, was everything a woman could ask for. Kind, loyal, and loving. We had been married for 3 years, and he treated me as though I was his entire world. But for some inexplicable reason, I began to feel trapped, bored even. I convinced myself that I needed something more. More excitement, more passion. Luke worked long hours to provide for us. Yet, instead of appreciating his hard work, I mistook it for neglect. I felt lonely, and rather than talking to him about my feelings, I sought validation elsewhere. That elsewhere came in the form of a coworker, a man who flattered me and made me feel things I foolishly thought I was missing. It started innocently enough. Shared lunches, inside jokes, texts that transitioned from casual to flirtatious. Before I knew it, I had crossed a line I could never uncross. When Luke found out, it was as though I had stabbed him in the heart. He didn't yell or scream. He just looked at me with tears in his eyes, his voice barely a whisper as he asked, "Why, Anna? Was I not enough for you?" I had no answer. What could I say? That it was a mistake? That I didn't mean to hurt him? None of it mattered because the damage was already done. I had betrayed the man who loved me unconditionally, and I could see the light in his eyes fade as he packed his things and left. I tried to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but he was done. He didn't deserve the pain I had caused, and deep down, I knew it. We divorced shortly after. I was left alone, consumed by regret. The years that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, dated casually, but nothing ever felt right. Every man I met was a painful reminder of what I had lost. Luke's face, his smile, his laugh, they haunted me. I wanted to reach out to him so many times, but I didn't. I told myself I didn't deserve to. He deserved peace, and I had already caused him enough pain. Life went on, but the ache in my chest never went away. Then, one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. I was sitting in a coffee shop, sipping a latte and scrolling through my phone, when I saw him. Luke. He walked in, looking as handsome as ever, though there was something different about him. His posture was more confident, his movements assured. There was an ease about him that I didn't recognize, but it only made my heart race more. I froze, unsure of what to do. Should I hide behind my menu or leave before he saw me? But before I could act, his eyes locked onto mine. For a moment, he looked surprised. Then his expression shifted to something calm, unreadable. Slowly, deliberately, he made his way toward me. "Anna," he said, his voice steady and composed. "Hi, Luke," I replied, my voice trembling. It felt surreal to see him again after all these years. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. I nodded silently, unable to find the words. My heart pounded as he pulled out the chair and sat down. Up close, I could see the subtle changes in him, the faint lines around his eyes, the maturity in his demeanor. He didn't look angry or hurt, just resolved. "It's been a long time," he said, breaking the silence. 5 years, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Luke nodded, his gaze steady. "How have you been?" The question caught me off guard. How could I sum up the years of regret and loneliness in a simple answer? "I've been okay," I lied, forcing a small smile. "And you?" His smile was faint but genuine. "I've been good. Life has been kind." His words felt like a knife to my chest. He had moved on, while I was still stuck in the past, replaying my mistakes over and over. "You look happy," I said softly. "I am," he replied. "I've found peace." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, I gathered the courage to speak. "Luke, I'm so sorry. For everything." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "I forgave you a long time ago, Anna. Holding on to anger would have only hurt me more. I hope you found some peace too." His forgiveness felt like a weight lifting off my chest, but it also made the ache of regret sharper. "Thank you," I whispered, tears brimming in my eyes. Luke stood, his movements graceful and confident. "Take care of yourself, Anna." And with that he walked away, leaving me sitting there, stunned and speechless. His final words echoed in my mind. I forgave you a long time ago. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of closure. He had moved on, and maybe it was time I tried to do the same. I forced myself to meet his gaze, the weight of unspoken words pressing heavily in the air between us. His familiar eyes held a calmness that unnerved me, a peace I had never seen before. Finally, I gathered the courage to break the silence, my voice trembling as I asked the question that had been swirling in my mind since the moment I saw him. How have you been? He smiled faintly, leaning back in his chair with a composure that only deepened the ache in my chest. Better, he said, his tone measured and even. It took a while, but I've found peace. Life's good now. His words hit me harder than I'd anticipated. 4 years, I'd hoped he would move on and find happiness, but hearing it aloud was like a dagger to my heart. Still, I knew I had no right to feel that way, not after everything I'd done. I'm glad, I replied, though my voice betrayed me with a slight quiver. You deserve it, Luke. He studied me in silence for a moment, his piercing gaze making me feel as though he could see through every layer of my regret. Then, he leaned forward, his expression growing serious. Why did you do it, Anna? His voice was steady but carried the weight of years of hurt. My stomach tightened, and tears stung my eyes. This was the question I had been dreading for years. I swallowed hard, my voice cracking under the pressure of his unwavering stare. I don't know, I admitted, the words tumbling out in a fractured whisper. I was selfish, insecure. I thought I needed something else, something I didn't have. But I was wrong, Luke. I see that now, and I'm so sorry for what I did to you. He nodded slowly, his face unreadable, yet the pain in his eyes spoke louder than words. I've spent years trying to make sense of it, he said, his voice tinged with a quiet sadness. At first I was angry. I wanted to hate you, but I couldn't. You were my wife, Anna. I loved you. He paused, his voice catching as he fought back emotions. He stopped abruptly, shaking his head as if trying to push the thought away. I loved you more than anything. And you broke me. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting. I could no longer hold them back. I know, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I know I did, and I hate myself for it. Every single day. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. But I can't. Luke sighed deeply, the tension in his shoulders easing ever so slightly. For the first time, his expression softened, and his voice carried a note of quiet resolve. I've forgiven you, Anna, he said. Not for you, but for me. Holding on to that anger, that pain, it was eating me alive. Forgiving you was the only way I could move on. His words were both a balm and a blow. Relief mingled with heartbreak as I realized that while he had forgiven me, it didn't mean we could go back to what we once were. He had built a new life, one that no longer included me. I'm glad you found peace, I said, my voice trembling. I've thought about reaching out so many times, but I didn't want to disrupt your life. I didn't deserve your forgiveness, Luke. I still don't. He smiled faintly, a bittersweet curve of his lips that was both sad and genuine. You're right. You didn't deserve it. But I gave it anyway, because I needed to let go of the past. And you should too, Anna. Carrying that guilt won't help you. His words stung, but I knew they were true. I had been carrying the weight of my mistakes for so long that I didn't even know how to begin letting them go. Are you happy now? I asked hesitantly, my voice so soft it was almost a whisper. Luke nodded. I am. It wasn't easy, but I've rebuilt my life. I found someone who loves me, someone I can trust. We're expecting our first child soon. The air was sucked out of my lungs as his words landed with the force of a blow. He had truly moved on, created a life filled with love and happiness that I could no longer be a part of. Yet, despite the pain, I felt a flicker of genuine happiness for him. He deserved this, more than anyone. That's wonderful, Luke, I said, forcing a smile through my tears. I'm so happy for you. He stood then, his chair scraping against the floor. For a moment, he hesitated, as if debating whether to say something more. Finally, he looked down at me, his expression kind but resolute. I hope you find peace too, Anna. You need to let go of the past. I have. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving me sitting there, tears streaming down my face. I watched him go, knowing in my heart that this was the last time I would ever see him. He had moved on, leaving behind the pain of our past, and built a life that was his alone. As I sat there in the empty coffee shop, the weight of his final words settled over me. Luke had forgiven me, but now it was my turn to forgive myself. Only then could I let go of the guilt and truly begin to move forward. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew that this was the first step toward finding my own peace.